Hello and welcome to another edition of the Crypto Club and Digital Asset Weekly Catch-Up on Zoom. It is Sunday, the 29th of December 2024, so the last session for this year. However, the session will run the way that we normally have these, where we've got no idea exactly what we're going to be talking about. Depends upon who shows up and what the audience wants to talk about. Typically, though, we'll talk about blockchain, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, any of the three-letter acronyms, really. Sometimes we discuss regulation, central bank digital currencies, digital asset innovation, anything of interest, really. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and everyone's welcome to join in. So if you're a novice and you're looking to learn more about the space, then come along and join us in a future session. Alternatively, if you're more experienced or you're running a project that you'd like to share details about, join in, tell us more about it. Hope you enjoy the session. As always the case, if you do like it, do click on the like, the subscribe, make comments, but even better, come along to a future session. So with that, last session of the year, let's see who's going to come and join us today.
Merry Christmas, Gary. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Feliz Navidad, and
Thank you
many
very
things.
much. Muchas gracias.
Muy bien. Hey, welcome back, Gabriella, to another interesting week. Let's see
Thank
who
you
else
very
is.
much. How are you today?
I am good, thank you. Looking forward to this final one of the year, because it'll be interesting to see what people's thoughts are,
Yes.
where we've been and what's happening next. And we've got Manny's joined as well. Hey, Manny, first time you've joined
Yeah,
us, Emmanuel? Yeah.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah. It's a little bit late for me. It's 11 p.m. in Dubai.
okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to just check it out. Like, what is this about? So yeah, I'm quite excited, guys.
Cool, excellent. Well, we quite often get people joining from Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It's certainly two of the regions in the Gulf states that are
Yeah,
particularly into the crypto space, and it is a little bit late in the day. I
super
appreciate that.
booming,
Yeah.
super booming. Like here, maybe it's the MENA right now. It's the MENA region, just the perfect place for crypto.
De- de-
Super, super hype.
definitely sees that way. Great that you've got cameras on as well. I was hoping we may have had a guest appearance from Gabriella putting a camera on, but I guess she's camera shy, so not a
Can
problem.
you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yep, Manny, we can hear you now. That's good.
Right,
Excellent.
good stuff.
Welcome back. Not seen you for a week or two. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I think I was just preoccupied with the trading, but fingers crossed. Hopefully, I'm ready to go for the new year. So, um, basically, in a nutshell, I sort of revamped one of my algos based on an idea of one of the guys I saw on a trading forum. And then the secret sauce is I'm using a platform called NinjaTrader. So I've just been
Hmm.
preoccupied with this really. But hopefully I'm ready to go for the new year on the NASDAQ. So the secret sauce is I use a platform called NinjaTrader, and that allows you to plug in some software called Bloodhound,
Okay.
which I've actually got on trial, but I used to own the license. So the guys who own the software have given me a few extra months free before I have to buy another license. But that's like the secret sauce, and I think that's really going to be the thing that's gonna turbocharge things. So fingers crossed, I'm ready to go for the
Okay.
new year. So that's really been just to recap for everybody else. So I'm developing trading algos, but it's not really crypto. Crypto is one of the things I'm going to look at in the future, but this is just conventional futures. So you're using the NinjaTrader platform. I've developed algos using some AI, and then the latest stuff I've added in is something called Bloodhound, which allows you to do rapid prototyping of trading systems, and these could be crypto trading systems. So
Hmm.
although I'm not looking at crypto, you could adapt this stuff to crypto. But yeah, I was interested in. I thought, given it's quite seasonal, I guess Christmas, New Year, and see where everything's at, and see where crypto's at, and
Yeah.
what's going on. I was in the middle of watching a documentary, which I'm sort of halfway through, on China and crypto on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure how up to date it is. I think it's about a year or two old, but it's still quite relevant. And how the Chinese have sort of clamped down on things like crypto trading and crypto exchanges, but they're still allowing data mining. I understand. I don't know
Hmm.
anybody else as sort of kept up to date with that kind of stuff. By the
Hey,
way,
hey,
what is the
go ahead.
theme of
Go.
today's? What is the theme of today's meeting?
I was going to suggest that it'd be a good thing to do a double thing, which is first of all a review of what people found interesting in 2024 and any
Hmm.
thoughts or predictions about 2025, because the next session that we hold next week will be January the 5th or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't even know. Yeah, yeah. So I'd certainly be particularly interested in people's views on what they think have been the major things this year. And that's why I'd welcome bringing in. We've got Ken's joined us as well, and Annie's rejoined us. Welcome any thoughts about what are the key points of the year really, and what do we think is going to happen in the new year? Because
Yeah,
looking at
yeah.
Bitcoin, that's certainly been quite exciting in the last couple of months when it broke through 100K. And
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
one thing I think one thing that came up on my TikTok page was about this guy who you heard about this British guy, I think, who accidentally threw away 8,000 Bitcoin. And then he assembled, I think, at some point, got $20 million of funding from a team who would
mhm,
do the excavation. But he's had problems with the council, who refused to let him excavate the site where he thinks he's dumped his Bitcoin, which is now worth
yeah,
about $1 billion. But the thing is, he's also offered the council 25%, and they still
mhm,
refused for whatever reason. And I
yeah,
had a chat with an American guy actually, who this trading software that I mentioned that I've been using, and we had a chat about that. And he said, well, in America that would probably work much better because there's much more about deal making, and it would make
yeah.
the mayor of the city look very good if he actually green lighted that kind of project, because then obviously that's $250 million for the city or the state or whatever. Whereas
Yeah.
here, for whatever reason, that just doesn't seem to work.
The, the
I
the
don't know the
whole
ins and outs of that.
Yeah, the whole story around that, I think it's in Swansea in South Wales. It's always seemed a little bit odd. Every so often, that guy keeps appearing again in the press with his latest thing about he's got an idea to, excavate stuff or dig stuff up or whatever. So I'm never actually quite convinced about it. When I suspect, in the early days, he probably wrote down the private key somewhere separately anyway. So whether it's on the hard drive or not, I would somehow doubt it. In
Mhm.
exclusivity, but I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll take a look at some other things. So just been joined with Bill as well. So hi, Bill. But I want to just quick over Annie. I was listening in on a call the other day. I think you were on it as well.
Yep.
With it was the names are escaping me at the moment. A couple of your Cambridge cohort, I think it was. We were
Mhm.
talking about things like Satoshis and ordinals and developments and that. I don't know. Was there anything of interest you found from that session that you could share with us?
I would say actually I had prepared something for last week's session that I missed.
Okay.
Was that I saw in the news. I need to retract it somehow on my phone. I think somebody managed to steal bitcoins. Now, from what I understand, that the blockchain is very secure.
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious as to how somebody could steal something that is meant to be extremely secure. So I think that would be
Mhm.
quite an interesting one as to what would be the trend for 2025.
Okay.
I would,
So it goes back. The blockchains, of which like the Bitcoin blockchain is just one of them, are generally considered to be exceedingly secure. And any of the main blockchains, whether that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, those kind of things, they have not been successfully hacked, first of all. But what has generally been hacked is people's access to the crypto wallets that contain the keys. So it's a little bit like if you bank with HSBC, Barclays, or whatever. Those banks are pretty secure, okay? But if someone gets hold of your password and your login ID details, then they can move money out of your account. And it's no different with crypto. So when you hear about, Bitcoin has been hacked, it usually, well, it never is Bitcoin itself that's been hacked. It's that a wallet has been hacked that gives access to the crypto. And that's always been around. And that's why we've gone through iterations. And this is just general cybersecurity as well as crypto, where you've introduced originally, it was things like user IDs and passwords. Then there were public keys, private keys for actually signing transactions. Then you got things like multi-factor authentication. So the idea that now when you log into a wallet, you have to give a biometric link, like your fingerprints or an iris scan, plus a password, plus something else. So there's always more and more of these security things coming on, but cybersecurity is an arms race in that you're constantly trying to keep up to speed with whatever the criminals are coming up with new. But generally, you find it's the wallets that get hacked. And I've known people who've had their wallets hacked, or they've done something like they've logged on to what they thought was a crypto exchange website, but it was actually a copy of it, which was used to get the credentials and everything. And then when they logged onto the real site, they actually saw their crypto being taken out of their accounts. So hopefully that gives you a kind of a feeling around some of that, Annie.
Yeah, it does.
It's nothing new.
Just so you know what that news is the North Korea stole $1.3 billion through crypto hacks in 2024.
Yeah. And that compared to the overall cybersecurity exposure is pretty small. I don't know what the total cybersecurity claims across the world are, but $1 billion isn't actually a large amount. I do a lot of stuff in the insurance sector, and I work for companies or with companies who insure against cybersecurity risk, and they're protecting like data centers or data and this kind of thing. So to be honest, $1 billion isn't actually a very large amount.
So you mean like banks in kind of currency that we're actually using? You mean that actually would be a larger amount in terms of scams and security issue than the crypto?
So I see it a lot certainly with scams in general, where people get things like, hey, I got this SMS message that said, click on this link because my bank needs to get in touch with me. That's one of them. And the link is actually a link to some malicious software that gets downloaded. But that's happened for years in traditional banking systems. Or you might get it that someone logs onto a website that installs a little bit of malicious software on their computer, which does like what's known as a key logger. And a key logger just records all the keystrokes you make. So that when you do log on to your banking application, it captures what your user ID, your password is, and everything like that, which is why I mentioned before about how some crypto wallets use biometrics, because obviously it's much harder to hack a fingerprint. So it's not impossible, but it's certainly harder. So yeah, these kind of things go on all the time. It's not something that's unique to crypto in any way.
Well, I thought crypto would actually eliminate it completely. That's what I was thinking, but probably the expectation is too high.
So I always argue that criminals are very creative. And I always say that the most innovative industry is criminals, because they keep coming up with new ideas. There's low barriers to entry. There's no regulation because they're breaking the law already and that kind of thing. Criminals are very, very innovative in coming up with new and creative ways of stealing your money in whatever way. And crypto can reduce the risk, but it doesn't necessarily remove the risk. It is all I would offer.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
No problem. I don't know. I wanted to bring on Bill. You joined us. Just wondered if you want to say hi, introduce yourself. Bill? Bill's gone away for now. Emmanuel, and you were saying you're in Dubai. Do you want to share a little bit more about your interest in crypto? What brings you along today?
Sure. So I've actually been in crypto for quite a long time now. It's since 2015. I'm the CEO of a company called U-Topia, utopia.com. We do a lot of media and entertainment on Web3. I do a lot of engagement with Web2 intellectual property, and then I onboard them into Web3. We closed Iron Maiden 2 weeks ago. We've been working with bands like Metallica, AC/DC. So I focus in a lot of brand activations in Web2 and Web3, and as well on something called RWAs and securities. So real world assets and securities. And yeah, like we do a lot of compliance, risk management. That's my main passions. And you know what I've been working in the last 4 or 5 years is being creating a crypto wallet for children with licenses, with like a lot of security and insurance, like super centralized, nothing decentralized, being honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you have children, you cannot do decentralized technology. So yeah, it's that's been my journey and that's my dream. My purpose is just to make internet accessible for children.
Excellent. How long have you been working on that then? Because you said you've been into the crypto space since 2015. But for that
Yeah,
particular,
so the low hanging fruit is that I found to onboard children is through entertainment. That's how I'm working with Hollywood and media and all this stuff, and games, to onboard them into crypto, and is a low risk, right? Because the digital assets they're not real. They're not real securities or tokens, so it's just fake tokens, fake NFTs.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I started. So I'm one of the first students in the world to get a blockchain. Like I'm the third student in the world to be a blockchain analyst. I got that certification in Australia. And yeah, I started my startup in 2020. And yeah, right now it's a small company, like 30 people plus.
yeah.
But yeah, we hope that we can IPO pretty soon.
So what you could do maybe if you're interested in, we obviously hold these sessions every week, but I do a particular slot for people who are doing startups or projects, which is the Gone in 3 minutes session, which is where you've got 180 seconds to talk about the project, give the details, and do a kind of like an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
If you'd like to come back and do that sometime, that'd be really interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
So,
will DM you. I will
yeah,
DM you. I will drop in the call like in a few minutes because
it's
it's
getting
quite
late.
late. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I will drop you a DM on WhatsApp, and yeah, sure, we can schedule.
Excellent. That's great. Well, thanks for
Thank you,
joining
dude.
us anyway. Nice to get the MENA contingent joining us. It's always good.
Thank you. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're just been joined by Elena as well. Elena, what we're doing this week, or what we're hoping to do, is just get any thoughts from people on what they thought the major events of 2024 in the blockchain, crypto, metaverse space were, and their thoughts about what to watch out for in 2025. So have a think about that, and we're just kind of like going around chatting to people, getting any thoughts and opinions and that kind of thing. So I don't know, Ken. Yeah, I noticed you came in quietly there. I'm guessing Ethereum's still the interesting space for you, but any particular highlights for you in 2024?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I reckon 2024, just like 2023, I think was a building year. I think 2025, and I personally believe till about the middle of 2026, is going to be basically where crypto is going to do really well. Couple of reasons. First reason, it's just basically the crypto cycle. I mean, a lot of people, some people don't believe in it. But I kind of like to look back and see how crypto's performed previously, depending on the Bitcoin's halving and so forth. And it seems to be following the same trend, so same trend as before. I mean, when was it? 31st December 2021. That was the bear market low. Well, we were in like we dropped down to something like 828 billion from that about 3 billion or something like that. But today we're around 3.4, 3.5 billion. So we've already gone past the previous high we had. And we haven't really started the boom, added 2.7 billion worth of value, and we haven't really started. Some really positive things coming out of the Trump administration. He has appointed a lot of pro-crypto people, and I think that will be really good for general regulation. which means that I reckon this year and next year are going to be extreme. I think this is going to be the main year where the bull market's really going to start picking up this year. I think this is going to be the year where crypto comes back onto the flow. That's my thing for 2025.
Excellent. That's a really nice summary of that, because I've just popped up a chart a moment ago as you were talking there, which was the overall market cap of crypto in general. And exactly as you say, over the year, it's been building its way up, and it's around about 3.28, 3.3 trillion at the moment. But if we look at it like as to where it came from, so Emmanuel he was saying before he got into crypto about 2015, which is not that far off from when I started getting interested. Now it was a little earlier. In 2014, 2015, the market cap was like 12, 11 billion type thing, fairly static, and then it suddenly grew in 2018, and we had this hike where it nearly hit a trillion type thing, and then it's just risen and risen, as you say, and recently it nearly hit 4 trillion, and so I think you're right that 2025 with regulation, particularly from the US, might accelerate that growth. So that'll be interesting.
A question I've got is, with that market cap, what percentage, does anyone have an idea, would be these kind of fly-by-night pump and dump schemes with meme coins? Mm-hmm. So I imagine, I would like to think it's a very, very small fraction. But, this is crypto, the Wild West.
I think it is. I mean, if I just pop that chart up again, but I'll do a split on it by the actual cryptos. And we can see like Bitcoin, the orange here, represents roughly 50%, fairly commonly. And this is just over the last month. If we look at this over the last year, you can see it maintains this dominance thing. So it's been mainly Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins, and then the others. So the whole things of like the fly-by-nights, the tokens, the NFTs, all this kind of thing, they are still relatively small compared to what the mainline cryptocurrencies represent.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
What happens basically is Bitcoin is the driver. It will drive, and it will be everything basically is reliant on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to create. It's already gone past its all-time high from the last market. And what happens at some point, Bitcoin starts to top off, and all the people who've made the money will then start recycling, going onto the mid tiers. The Ethereum, Solana, and the smaller coins. And that's when, I don't know, some people call it, that's the banana zone. That's when everything rips, because these are smaller tokens. So a little bit of liquidity into them has an exponential outcome for the person who holds them. And what you will find is a lot of the smaller tokens, that's why they are actually held by retail investors, and they'll get excited simply because smaller tokens pair up to a bigger token. And it used to be Bitcoin when Bitcoin was the only main thing, but now because a lot of things are smart contract based, you're going to be looking at them being paired up to maybe Solana or Ethereum. So when Solana, Ethereum, and those mid-tier tokens rip, it's just going to pull up the little tokens, because it's one for one. So let's say you pair your token against Ethereum. If Ethereum goes up by 10%, it's going to pull up your token up by 10% simply because that's the only counterparty to it. And that's what happens with smaller tokens. But I think the mid-tier ones are going to be, do extremely well. They're going to outperform the returns you can get on Bitcoin, because for Bitcoin at the moment to do, let's just call it 100,000. Let's say something on 100,000 for it to do a 1x, in other words, for it to double, it needs to get to 200,000. But with the smaller tokens, for them to double, they just need to maybe go from a market cap of, I don't know, 10 million to a market cap of 20 million. And so you're going to get the smaller ones really outperform. I think Solana and Ethereum will definitely up. In fact, I think Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin, and Solana will outperform Ethereum. But then after that, then it's sort of everybody else's guess. But those are kind of like the blue chip of our industry. I mean, we don't have a big industry, as Gary said earlier. We know it's, institutions and the banks and they'll look at market caps of 3 billion and 3 trillion, and they'll just laugh. They'll say, well, that's just one Nvidia, and how many 3 trillion companies are there in the stock market? And, they look at our market and it's really small compared to bonds, compared to things like that. But yeah, the smaller ones I think will do well, but you've got to wait for the cycle and I think that'll probably happen towards the end of that. Usually happens towards the end of the cycle. Because once that pops, that's it. We're onto bear market. Once the little tokens come up and then pop, then we're back onto the start of the cycle. That's my point of view.
I think one question I had a few weeks back, last time I came on, or maybe a time before that, was the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, because obviously with Ethereum, you've got smart contracts and you can develop applications, but Bitcoin itself is just an asset that you hold. And obviously you've got some funds. I've heard of one fund, I can't remember the name of them now, but they've piled a huge amount of their money into Bitcoin. And I heard it on a financial channel. I can't remember the name of them.
Grayscale and BlackRock, who are two of the biggest private investment companies, have got
it wasn't those,
substantial.
It was another
probably MicroStrategy.
Yeah, that's it. MicroStrategy. That's the one. So they're piling it. No, obviously, from their point of view, it's just an investment into an asset, which is going to deliver them a return. They're not.
No. I'll offer a thought on that. So MicroStrategy is interesting for a few reasons. But first of all, MicroStrategy is not a hedge fund or an investment company. It's actually a business analytics company run by Michael Saylor. So their core was developing, BI solutions and that. And if you listen to Michael Saylor, he is not getting his company to invest in Bitcoin as an investment. Okay, he's not doing it because he thinks the price of crypto is going up. He says, and he said this for a while, that he considers Bitcoin to be a hedge against this, the stability of the overall financial system. So his claim is that they're not putting money into Bitcoin in order to make a profit out of the price of Bitcoin going up in price. But
which BlackRock will be,
but he feels that there is going to be such general financial instability around the world that he believes that it's an alternative safe haven. So it's very interesting, MicroStrategy, because more and more people are now buying shares in MicroStrategy because it's a way of getting exposure to Bitcoin without owning Bitcoin. And it's a little bit more secure, and that's doing no harm. But they've been doing things like, I think they've issued some more loan notes or something recently, and they're doing a fundraise in order to buy more Bitcoin. But just as I always say, that this session is never about offering financial advice or recommendations or whatever. I would say with MicroStrategy, just be mindful that their strategy is not around making money out of Bitcoin. It's about acting as a hedge against the traditional financial system, which is quite a strong thing.
But crypto itself, from past experience, has probably an exaggerated amount of volatility compared to what you'd call normal financial instruments. Like, for example, if you put your money into Tesla or Microsoft, for example, I would expect you're still going to get more volatility in Bitcoin. Bitcoin can still go from 100K to 50K for whatever reason. Whereas you probably wouldn't expect that with Tesla or Microsoft, for example.
I've certainly known examples of companies who've gone from like $100 to zero almost overnight. It can happen, but you're right. It's very unusual. But you're right that generally it's an accepted thing that in crypto, the volatility of crypto is a different order of magnitude to traditional financial services. And that's why it's funny. I've been interested in this space like over 10 years now. And I find it quite funny when, people watch Bitcoin's price and it drops by 10% or even 15% and occasionally 20%. And the people who are new to this are going, oh no, it's a disaster, it's a collapse, blah, 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 blah. It's like, this is crypto. 20%, it'll be back up next week or next month or next year or whatever. And people just don't get it. And that's why it's interesting as well, because Manny, obviously, where you're doing things like algo trading and analytics and that, this is where I've seen companies fail, where they've taken the algorithms that they've used for traditional financial trading, and they've said, "Oh yeah, exactly." And crypto does not behave the same way as you're saying before. The sheer volatility of it makes it somewhat different. So, but that's why it makes it interesting, anyway.
Yeah. I don't know if Emmanuel's on the call, because I was just interested I don't want to bog anyone down with technical details. I was just a very brief overview of the kind of tech stack.
Unfortunately, he's dropped off.
Oh, okay, no problem. I was just going to ask if maybe I can catch him next time around, but
Yeah.
I assumed he was from a development background, and I just without giving away any trade secrets in terms of what they're developing, but just a very brief outline of the kind of technology that they use. And I think one of the self-criticisms I would have of myself was that I spent a lot of time, well, over the last few years, but just on the conventional futures trading space. So crypto has been on my to-do list, but I haven't gained any momentum. I think one of my New Year's resolutions is that I've pushed the conventional stuff as far as I need to, and hopefully we'll have some critical mass now. But in terms of the trading, I want to do that in the afternoon. So the US session, so it's going to be the US markets, the S&P and the NASDAQ. So I can time box that from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m., say. And then in the mornings, I've got time free other than going to the gym. I want to start doing some crypto development so that I can come on here, and anyone who is from the more technically side, I know Ken, I think, has some technical knowledge, but anyone who's sort of hardcore into and I think have had guys on here who are very, very strong technically, in terms of they've been doing crypto development for years, but I need to get to the point where at least I can hold a conversation about the technical side in terms of Solidity and smart contract development or algos geared towards crypto. So I think that's definitely that's my number one New Year's resolution, I think. So maybe over the coming months I can have those kind of some element of technical conversation without boring everybody else with the technical details as well.
Yeah. Always happy to facilitate any conversations on that. The other thing as well is it is really important for people to realize that crypto and traditional markets do definitely behave differently. That it's not kind of a lift and shift of, this is how futures work on the NASDAQ, and therefore they will behave the same with crypto futures, for example, but they just don't. So it might also be worth you all speaking to the likes of Jeremy Saragosa, but Annie will know how to say his name correctly. He and I sometimes have conversations, and he joins various calls now. He runs Algo Dynamics, which is a crypto forecasting type thing. You'd probably have an interesting conversation with him, probably more around the algorithms behind the analytics, as opposed to necessarily whether it's written in C#, Java, Python, or whatever, which actually is almost an aside. Because I've not actually seen any successful algorithmic trading capabilities in crypto that use traditional crypto blockchain languages like Solidity or Go or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've got material which a guy has created, and this is probably a word of caution because there's a guy out there who's created a lot of good material, probably the best you can find, for a small fee on Udemy. He's created some great courses, but he himself concedes that he's given you a good base, but he himself has not turned his material into profitable strategies. So I think for me, it's a case of I would rely on the conventional futures trading to get things moving in terms of trading profits. But the crypto would just be me kind of case of jumping in and see where it leads. And you don't know where it's gonna. If you make some movement in that direction, you might get somewhere. But obviously, if you just, as felt I've sort of done this year, which is sit on the sidelines and not really sink my teeth into crypto, then you don't know where it's gonna head. But I think it might be that too, some of the stuff that guy's developed, in order to actually make it into a profitable strategy or strategies, you'd have to have the economies of scale. So things like co-located servers and trading volume. So you probably have to scale it to fund size rather than being a one-man band operation, I think. But then obviously you're competing with all the high-frequency trading firms and that kind of stuff. So you'd have to have money behind you.
Well, your other thing as well is to consider that there are different strategies, and obviously, like looking at prices and predicting things is one form of algorithms. There's also people who are quite successful on arbitrage trading as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the first point of call. But the material that this guy that I mentioned, his name, if anyone wants to look, I think it's Sean McDonough, and he's on Udemy, and he's exactly created some courses on statistical arbitrage in crypto, using Python actually. So although I think he's got a web page where he also does stuff in Rust, another programming language. But yeah, that's exactly where I would start. So I wouldn't, because like as you said, crypto's a different animal. I would start with StatArb rather than worrying about taking what I've done on the Nasdaq and trying to port that to the Bitcoin, for example, because that wouldn't work from what you said. Yep.
And it's probably worthwhile sharing. I don't know if everyone on the call or who are going to be listening afterwards actually understands what crypto arbitrage is about and what it does. So I'll just quickly explain it. Actually, if you think about if you buy shares in, say, British Airways, so a UK quoted company or whatever, you can only buy those shares through a broker who is connected with London Stock Exchange, who trade in UK company shares. And if you want to buy shares in Tesla, for example, then Tesla, I think, is on the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, or NASDAQ or whatever. But again, there's only one exchange that you can buy Tesla shares. With crypto, it's a different story. And so with crypto, if we take a look at Bitcoin, for example, you can buy crypto on the Binance exchange, on Bybit, on Coinbase, on OKX, Upbit. So there's all of these crypto exchanges. These are just like 10 of the kind of top ones. And what you'll notice is that the prices are all very, very slightly different. And so the idea of getting into arbitrage trading is if you notice that one exchange is offering Bitcoin at a low price, then you buy it off them and you sell it to another exchange who are offering to buy it at a higher price. So the arbitrage is just you're playing the game of buying it at one price and selling it at a different price in some way. And you can do that in crypto because of the very fact that you're not restricted to just one exchange. Now, one of the challenges...
That's certainly one... Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add that that's definitely one type of arbitrage. You can have a slightly more complicated example, which the guy I mentioned uses, where you're looking at sort of pairs. So you might do that that kind of transaction several times. So you cross one Bitcoin with another pair, and then you do that multiple times, and then that sort of multiple step arbitrage then gives you a profit at the end. You're swapping a couple of times. What you said is exactly right, but it's just a slightly more complicated version of what you've just said.
You're right. Maybe to explain that a slightly different way, that a moment ago it's basically you could buy Bitcoin off one exchange and sell it onto another exchange. But what you can also do is all of these cryptos, Bitcoin here is quoted in dollars, and we've got Ethereum, we've got Tether, which is a stable coin on that, is that you might find that you can buy Bitcoin at a certain price, but then you can buy Ethereum using Bitcoin directly, and you might find there's a price difference, and then you sell the Ethereum back. And this is where, if you get this multi-way thing, exactly as Manny says, there's an opportunity for you to potentially make money or lose it through that as well, basically by flipping between the different currencies now. And this is where people talk about stable coins quite a lot. So Tether, for example, USDT. Tether is a stable coin that, roughly speaking, is, one Tether is $1. It's a cryptocurrency though, which means that it's a little bit easier to trade with it than converting from fiat money like dollars, pounds, euros, or whatever. So you can actually use something like USDT or USDC as somewhere to effectively park your money in between doing transactions and that. So all interesting stuff, fascinating thing. Just want to keep moving anyway, rather than hogging that too much. I don't know, Elena, have you had an opportunity to have any thoughts about anything you think that has been big happening this year, or any thoughts about 2025?
I personally had an amazing year, which didn't include learning too much about cryptocurrencies, but I I'm a different person compared to 1 year ago in regards to the metaverse.
Are you an avatar
So
now then?
I'm a 3D interoperable, interconnected, and secure avatar, transparent as well.
Excellent.
So I can only promise that in 2025 I will be reporting everything that has to do with virtual environments.
Excellent.
I just like to add to that. Am I correct in saying that the huge money pumped into the metaverse by Mark Zuckerberg hasn't actually paid off so far? So this big gamble that the VR was going to be the big thing and everybody's going to be doing their meetings. I think Bill Gates predicted all meetings would be via sort of virtual headsets within a few years. That isn't actually happening. Would I be correct in saying that?
Elena, go on. You're the expert in this now.
As the way I understand, it hasn't been as successful as predicted, and they are currently shifted their focus towards some different things.
Mm-hmm. And Manny, maybe to build on that a little bit further, Facebook did kind of go all in on the metaverse a few years ago, to such an extent it rebranded itself. Facebook, the parent company, is called Meta. And the whole belief was that the metaverse was going to explode, Facebook was going to be a leader in that kind of thing. They were doing a lot of research and investment into VR headsets, so virtual reality headsets, and I saw certainly some of that happen with some of the other products like Oculus Rift and the 3D VR headsets and that kind of thing. From what I've seen, there's been a few step changes. The first is that a lot of metaverse implementations that I've seen so far are kind of more just 3D websites. They've been in some ways quite disappointing. Even if you go into some of the companies, LVMH, who are a luxury goods company, Louis Vuitton, and I think Adidas, Nike, Reebok, all of these companies have dabbled into the metaverse, where you effectively drop into a game, which you may have a headset on and you wander around in there. And it's basically, it's just another distribution channel for the products. So you can experience having a look at their products, this kind of thing. That hasn't grown quite at the pace that the industry analysts proposed. What I'm seeing now, and this was probably one of my predictions for 2025, is that we seem to have evolved away from virtual reality and more to augmented and mixed reality. So you may remember Google Glass from a few years ago. Google Glass launched a consumer product where you wear a pair of glasses and it's got a little head-up display built in. They discontinued that, but they continued with Google Enterprise Glass for a while, which was about providing augmented reality for businesses and that kind of thing. But they stopped that, I think it was September of last year, or they said they were stopping it.
Just to clarify, what is I have come across it before, but I've actually forgotten what it is. Augmented reality versus virtual reality, just to clarify the distinction.
Yeah.
I actually know something about that actually,
Go
because
for it, Annie.
I was working for industrial software company, so I was about to add on that augmented reality. So basically, with augmented reality, you can still see your surroundings, but with the image of whatever you're looking at, if it is a building or some structure, you see that structure overlapped onto your real reality.
Okay, so it's like a hybrid, your real
Yeah.
environment and the virtual environment, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So rather than that, you're completely immersed in that virtual environment, which sometimes some people will find it quite dizzy, depending on the heights of what you're looking at. When it is virtual reality, with augmented reality, you can see your surroundings. So you're not completely being made dizzy by looking at what you're looking at, because it's like a projector projecting something in front of your environment.
Yeah. You still have to wear some form of glasses or headset to get that effect, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you think about, Manny, in effect, virtual reality is where you have a headset where you can't see out, but it projects things and you see through that. Augmented reality, like Google Glass, which actually looked quite like these glasses I'm wearing now, would have like a head-up display effectively overlaid, which means I could do things like I could look at something and the overlay would tell me what it is I'm looking at. So
for example, let's say a futuristic scenario could be you walk into, I don't know, a department store, you put on a set of their glasses, and then depending on, it would scan where you're looking at and then bring up information about that product, for example. That's one use case, right?
Yeah, that's an example. Or the one that's actually done at the moment is you can effectively do it with augmented reality using a mobile phone. So you hold a mobile phone up, and if it's got the right software, you can actually use that already to do some things like that.
That's true. I've already seen that when I was doing my MBA. At some point. It's an app developed by the American Business School, the Harvard Business School. So yes, I've seen that already actually. I was just thinking back to the discussion point when you were asking about anything to talk about the trend in 2025. I was actually quite impressed with what Emmanuel was presenting earlier about helping kids accessing internet. I'm curious because my understanding of Web3 is not quite there yet. So I know that he has already dropped off the call, but it would be nice for him to be able to talk more about that in the next time. I'm curious because are we thinking that by next year in this country, in the UK, we are able to access Web3? It is more decentralized in the sense that more people can have access, or even including decentralized finance and all that sort of stuff. So I'm kind of curious towards the trend of it.
I'm going to ask Ken if he could offer some thoughts on that, actually, because I know he's more into the Web3 space. Because to me, fundamentally, do you actually need to know as an end user that you are using Web3? What's the difference in an experience between Web 2 and Web 3? What's your thoughts, Ken?
Well, I mean, just to answer your question there, you shouldn't really. Web3 basically will, I think, become really widely used when people don't know the difference. Just like we don't know that, I don't, for example, Netflix, I think they started off with a Python-based background, running their algorithm to give you your best Netflix shows. And they migrated onto Next, basically a JavaScript-based backend for the algorithm. But nobody knows that. They just care about sitting down and watching their whatever they want to watch on Netflix. So I don't think the users should really care whether it's decentralized or not. It's really an industry thing that we care about. But the thing is, when he was speaking about the children situation, that's really a difficult one because he did slightly mention centralized, and that's the thing. I mean, I understand why you say that because it's very sensitive when you start dealing with kids. It becomes a very sensitive issue, and as it should be because parents and everything are very, protective of their children. And so, as things are, for something to be truly decentralized, I don't think it will be suitable for kids because the whole nature of it being decentralized means you don't have a centralized organization controlling everything. And in order to give kids the 100% protection that you need to be able to control everything that they see, and on the it needs to have some sort of centralization, unless obviously they've designed a system where they pass the centralized entity of control to the parent, so the parent then controls it. Maybe that's what they've done. I like I say, he was here for such a short time. We didn't really get a lot to know about it, so it would depend on how they've designed their system. But open systems should really be decentralized. In other words, nobody controls it. That's the whole thing about Web3. At the moment, we're in a world where you do have some truly Web3 projects, but the majority of the projects are actually, I'd say, centralized. All the layer twos, for example, base and all that, they're all centralized. I'd say Solana's all centralized because you've got somebody in the middle who can actually stop transactions, who can change things, who can effectively do what anybody who's a database administrator can do. And that's the thing. At the moment, a lot of the people calling themselves Web3 aren't really decentralized. In my mind, they're not really truly Web3. But it's a journey, and we're on that journey. Just also to answer my view on Manny's question about Meta and Facebook. I think they had to go that way because just looking at TikTok, for example, when TikTok came and took all over, basically came in at their lunch. If they hadn't been investing in Llama, which is kind of their AI systems, they wouldn't be able to actually have been able to bring in things like stories on Instagram and stuff like that because in my mind, when we talk about social media, it's true in the olden days because you had both the social and the media. But what TikTok has told us, it's the social and the media have been actually split. Because when you go onto TikTok, it's not like when you go onto Facebook where you've got your friends, people that you decide are there, and you can only see basically, you can only see your friends' stuff, and also you can only see the ads that they give you. When you go onto TikTok, I mean, I tested it out with a couple of phones, sign up. It just basically gives you random things, and then you watch one or two things, and then it just starts giving you things it thinks you like based on what you've watched. It doesn't care who your friends are. It doesn't really care who you follow. It cares on which videos are performing the best, and does this match the kind of videos you are watching? So it will just feed you what you like, and so that's really media.
Yeah.
There's no social.
Exactly. So one of my favorite things has been people who do live streaming from NYC, New York, which I haven't been to yet. But then because it knows you like that, it'll just keep bombarding you with more stuff. But on that note, wasn't there something about a TikTok ban, which I think Trump is trying to stop? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's still going on. I mean, he wants it to, it's not really, I think the US courts have say that they have to sell it by the 19th or something like that, or 17th of January to a US owner. Trump basically says that should be postponed until he's in power so that, he doesn't want it banned, I think is what he said. Because I think the likes of other social media companies are saying, well, this kind of control, they could start with TikTok, but then we're next. So it's kind of like they both want TikTok banned, but then they're thinking, well, could we be next on the list? So I mean, I've been following it on the sideline, but not too much really. But the reason I've been following it because there's a couple of decentralized social media companies out there building. And so they kind of write some big blogs about this. They follow it because they see it as positive for them. But I don't know about the ins and out of exactly what's going on. But I think it's something that's going to be big in the news come next year. But I mean, TikTok has been banned in, I think it was it Romania?
India that banned it.
Yeah,
Did India
India's
ban it?
banned it. Romania, I think, was the latest one in Europe because it was something to do with the presidential election. I think it was Romania, but it's one of the Eastern Bloc countries. So a lot of countries are looking at social media, and I think it's going to be a news thing for a while. So that's a gap for decentralized social media. So, but like I said, I don't think they'll ban it. I think they'll move it in such a way because there's so many people earn their living off TikTok in the US, so who are suddenly going to be, well, with no
Out of a
money.
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably going back to Annie's question around Web3 as well before. We think about, like, when we talk about Web3, what is the difference between Web3, 2, 1, and so on? The way I kind of think about it is simply how you log into things to access them. So I think of Web 1 and Web 2 as, if I want to access my bank account, I need to enter a user ID and a password, which was Web 1 kind of thing. Web 2 was where I entered a user ID and a password, and it probably asked for biometric proof, so fingerprint or something. Web 3 is where you use a crypto wallet for authentication. And so the authentication mechanism linked in with smart contracts potentially on the back end means that the experience is different. So for me at the moment, there was loads of changes done, I think it was about 2 years ago now in Europe around credit card payments and PCI DSS and all the standards that went round, which was why all of a sudden people's credit cards didn't quite work right, and you had to enter more details every time you did a transaction. And this was all to do with the new digital payment standards that were coming through, which means it's a complete pain to make payments. You have to remember your user ID, your password, your fingerprints, and your cat's maiden name or something. It gets quite silly, which makes it quite difficult to transact. Now, if all of a sudden you can use an authentication method on your mobile phone, which is your crypto wallet, which acts as the authenticator, and so you don't now need to remember, what your grandmother's favorite football team was or whatever these silly things are, that might then start leading to improvements. And this is where it comes back to the thing we were saying before about Web3 and decentralization. That for me, it's the potential for it to make accessing your own information easier through having a wallet that does the authentication and authorization might lead to an improvement. And I think that was the hope of many companies, but they're not quite there yet. So, because one of the problems with wallets is that they tend to be a threat vector for cyber criminals to hack into, because if you can access my phone and my wallet, you can then access my crypto or my bank account or anything else type thing. So I guess hopefully, Annie, that helps with the kind of questions you were asking on that.
It does help. No, thank you, Gary, because obviously this country is not in this country as well, in the UK, there are also people who are disadvantaged. It would be quite nice that even for them as well, being able to access the internet and do learning like everyone can and stuff like that, But also thank you, Ken, for his comment. And by the way, I was just thinking as well that if the trend that what you guys were talking about earlier, I think Google Glass should come back into the market. Maybe this is the right time, because the last time they were trying to do that, they weren't successful. And I'm kind of wondering if what you were saying is correct, Ken, is probably that Google Glass should come back into the market now, and it's probably something really hot, and that they get a lot of profit out of it.
Yep. And that's the thing. I'll always give credit that Google are incredibly innovative, which also means that they try things, and if they don't work, they dump them. So I'm using a particular AI platform that Google's developed, which is Notebook LM, and it's an experiment, but it's game changing if you into accessing documents and using AI. But they might just drop it tomorrow, which is what they did with Google Glass a few years ago, where they tried it for consumers, it didn't work, they killed it. They've done it for enterprise. So I agree. I think you're right, Annie, that they may well bring on like Google Glass 3 as something. We'll see where that comes next. I guess we're out of time, unfortunately, which is a real shame because it's getting the really interesting stuff. I suppose that the only final thing I would offer, particularly on the UK, is that we probably, for the whole of this year, heard people criticising about the regulators and how they stifle innovation and prevent things. And in the UK FCA, which is the UK regulator, was actually given a mandate to become more regulatory competitive, I think it was described as, which was interesting. And then I saw in the news today, there's a comment that Sir Keir Starmer, who's the UK Prime Minister, is asking regulators across multiple industries, so not just financial, about ways of being more innovative and supportive and encouraging. So maybe 2025 in the UK, there might be a light at the end of the tunnel and we get some regulatory friendly people at last. So with that's it, folks. We've had 2024, an exciting year. Elena is now the domain expert in the metaverse, and she's going to take that forward into 2025, where we're going to see a 3D rendition of her, which is brilliant. Looking forward to that. But yeah, I agree with the sentiments of everyone else there. I think it's been an interesting year. A lot of it's been driven by the hype of Bitcoin hitting $100,000, and that always excites people. I think 2025 is going to be even more interesting. So stay tuned, stick around, and hope everyone enjoyed it. Wish everyone a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Bye for now.
Happy New Year. Thank you, guys, and